You are now entering the Take Up, a place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host, the managing editor of thetakeup.com, Andrew Wyatt. Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
Every episode, we decide if one film gets to enter the Take Up's permanent cinema. Today, we have a guest from Do You Like Apples? It is Drew Wendt, and he has chosen Mike Nichols' The Graduate. We'll decide if we're going to keep that forever or if it will be burnt in a fiery furnace. And then we'll do one more thing.
Why does it have to be burnt in a furnace? Like, I thought it was just in the vault or not in the vault. We're destroying movies, too?
We're going to have to destroy it because if we can't keep it forever, then it has to be destroyed. Don't you know how the rules of things work?
Oh, okay.
No?
Okay.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know. I wasn't aware of all the parameters, apparently.
Yeah, it's going to be like the end of Inglourious Bastards, and it's going to be my face instead of Shoshana.
Laughing.
Oh, yeah, hysterically, like, I hate The Graduate. Ha, 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 ha. That is no spoiler.
The face of queer vengeance.
Ooh, buddy, do we have a lot to fucking talk about with this one? Oh, my goodness. You know, okay, wait. We have a guest, though.
Yeah.
Before we get into everything, Drew Wendt is back. Okay, Drew, the first time you were on was, what was it? What was the fucking film?
It had to be, I was on pre the Take Up. So it's wonderful to be here on this podcast. But yeah, your guys' previous podcast, Billy and I came on to do After Yang for the gems of that year series.
Did you check out Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey? I
did not. On paper, I was incredibly excited. And once I saw a trailer and saw some of the reaction, it was I still have yet to see it. I will see it, but yeah, I have not heard great things.
Man, talk about burning a film up in a fire and then we all piss on it. That's it for me.
Oh, that bad. Wow.
Jesus, it was bad. Anyway. Well, thank you for coming back. I wonder if we'll have visceral reactions to The Graduate, the film that you chose. So before we do that, Do You Like Apples? You guys have moved to subscriptions. Tell us about it.
Yeah. We've been doing a newsletter for about 5 or 6 years now. We do kind of weekly movie recommendations on there. Recently, we just rolled out paid subscriptions. So if you want to remain a free reader, go ahead. You'll still get recommendations once or twice a month. But we kind of rolled out some paid options for people who want a little extra, a little more exclusive bonus content that we'll provide that's outside of the realm of our usual recommending based on a theme. So we just rolled that out. We got a lot of stuff coming up that we're excited about, and we have a podcast as well, as everyone does. So that we do twice a month episodes about generally just breaking down movies, new releases typically, or we kind of focus on a filmmaker's career or actress's career. So we got it going on. doyoulikeapples.substack.com is where you can find everything.
I have contributed before.
You have, and you've been on the pod.
I have not been asked since. I guess you didn't like Desert. What is that movie called? Desert Hearts. Oh, I'm kidding.
I loved your piece then, and then you've been on the pod a couple times as well, which we've enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're glad to have you back. I'm gonna start with Andrew though. Andrew, do you have a storied history with The Graduate? Were you also like watching the AFI 100 countdowns at way too young of an age and being like, "Oh, I've got to see this Graduate film," and then didn't understand it until yesterday?
No, nothing like that. I think like a lot of films that were sort of considered part of the American canon, I saw it first in college, I believe. It's definitely a film that my mom had talked about and had urged me to watch when I was old enough to watch it, as being sort of an essential boomer film. And I recall seeing it sometime in college, but I haven't seen it since then. So I had to revisit it for this. It's been like 25 years since I've seen it. So sort of a interesting experience in that respect.
I feel like I said on the last episode, I think I watched this every 5 years. I'm not sure that it hasn't been longer because I saw it so differently this time, which we can talk about that. But Drew, you chose it. What's your relationship with it?
Well, similarly, to Andrew in college, I was when I first saw it. I took a intro to film 101 class. You know, just basics of film. Um, I liked movies growing up, but it wasn't an obsession until college. And in that class, we watched a lot of good stuff. A lot of movies that are still my favorites today. And we watched The Graduate, and I guess there's three components to why it became so influential for me in becoming a cinephile. But I think one was kind of the technical filmmaking lesson that it gave me, which our professor back then did a great job of outlining, teaching me about framing, blocking, cinematography, how to tell a story visually, all the elements of film coming together. Then there's the kind of the film history angle, the new Hollywood, the Oscars that year, which was a big Oscars year, um, for the industry, and then I would say just the resonant themes, which as you mentioned is kind of a uh, an iconic boomer film, because it came out in the late '60s, new Hollywood era, and I think for a 19-year-old me back then, I think it matched some of what I was feeling during my just getting into college years, and some of the aimless wandering uncertainty that I think a lot of people feel around that age. And um, Benjamin Braddock is a recent college graduate, but I think I was recently high school graduate, kind of feeling like where is my life going to go? What do I do? Do I follow this path or this path? Or so I think that kind of resonated too. And I think in the years since, it's one of my favorites. I watch it every few years, I think. And I think, yeah, going back to it, I think I always find new things to appreciate and to look at it from different angles, and honestly find the limitations of the movie too, which I think we could
Mm.
talk about. But so I know I threw a lot out there, but I'll let you guys decide on where you want to go next. But that's kind of how I came to it and how I've come to love it so much.
No, I think that should guide a conversation. There are some really salient points there. And those are the points of, I think, that make it a timeless film. Even though it is so time bound, I'm not sure that I'm interested in, like, if people want to talk about the culture of the time that it was made, they can read Mark Harris's Pictures of the Revolution about that Oscar year that you mentioned. And then
Great book,
also
yeah.
his fucking tome on Mike Nichols is really great too. Gets into even more detail there. But I think, it definitely culturally struck everyone at the time because there's the time of unease culturally, and the gap between the youth and the older generations is certainly accelerating, with new ideas about sex, about, relationships, about what it is to have value in society. And to think about characters like Ben's parents and Mrs. Robinson and them coming from being kids during World War II and thinking about how they were robbed of their childhoods
Mm.
in completely different ways. But, Vietnam encroaching on the younger generation here. And there's a lot to unpack there, but I think it's worth really looking at the film itself is so rich in ideas and characterization and filmmaking that I don't, I'm not sure that I'm as interested in any of that. And I saw like you, I always kind of have a different experience with this. And I've watched it before and I've kind of been turned completely off by it and by Nichols' filmmaking as maybe more tricky than or trick filled than rooted in any kind of experience. But yesterday when I watched it, that's bullshit, Josh. Like, if anything, the thing about Nichols' filmmaking and the photography by Robert Surtees and really everything that's sort of like perfectly imperfect in this is rooted in Benjamin's experience. And I think that's maybe influenced a little bit by new filmmaking out of, Europe and everything that's getting imported, but it's certainly synthesized into a new Hollywood filmmaking. Anyway, go read all those books, Raging Bulls, Easy Riders, all those things, and you can read about that.
Let me ask a question here, because
Yeah.
I like that you zeroed it on Benjamin's subjective experience. Is there a single scene in this movie that he is not in?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I
No,
can
I don't
I
think
can
so.
pinpoint my new favorite shot where he is not really the subject of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
The film has a little bit of a shift as it welcomes in Elaine's perspective. Okay. We have to talk about this being one of the best casts ever too, and how it was going to be originally completely ruined by a different cast. Thinking about Robert Redford, who matches, it's based on a book by Charles Webb, and Benjamin Braddock in that book is Robert Redford, like looks like him. So of course you would cast him as
Waspy
that.
guy. Yeah.
Just waspy blonde, beautiful man. And Candice Bergen's, but most of Candice Bergen, most importantly, Mrs. Robinson, Doris Day. Can you imagine that? I can, and it's just a completely different picture altogether. But there's a shot when Ben and Elaine are on their first date, after they've gotten their burgers and they're just sitting talking in the car, and it's ostensibly a close-up of Catherine Ross, but she's obstructed by the windshield of Ben's car, and Ben is like in the foreground but out of focus, and it's like backlit, but there is just one focal light on her, and she's talking about her experience. And in that scene, it is a little bit about Benjamin, because it's kind of like where Ben might be growing into his feelings for her, but she's so fucking good, Catherine Ross, in this movie. And she's really good because she's so believable as Anne Bancroft's, as Mrs. Robinson's daughter. She has the same sort of like laser focused fire behind her eyes, but maybe it's that way because her mother is that way, But I mean, that's where Nichols is great in understanding character, like as it could be compared to how it is written. Because I have read the book, and it reads differently than the way he kind of makes the characters in this film.
Yeah, do you think because I would say back when I first saw it in college, I was just completely wowed by what Nichols was doing with the camera and all the like you said, the tricks he uses, the leg shot, the famous leg framing shot.
Yeah.
He's doing so much, which I think is what helped it for me get noticed more and leave more of a lasting impression, kind of elevate it above a lot of other comedies of the era and coming of age stories and whatnot. But I like you, I've gone back and forth on that. I've been like, he's doing a lot here. Like, do we need all this? And then other times I'm watching, I'm like, God, that's another incredible shot. Like I'm just, it keeps me so locked into the movie throughout by what Nichols keeps doing. But I'm wondering if because sometimes I get turned, oh, this director's doing too much, turned off by that. But then with this one, it doesn't ever seem to kick me out of the movie. So I wonder if that just depends on, like you said, the casting, performances we get. I mean, Anne Bancroft gives the best performance in the movie, and I think I think so, at least. And it's written. I don't know how she is in the book, but it's written to where she seems like the seductress when you first see her. The middle part of the movie, you get a lot more character depth. You see a lot more what's going on with her, and Roger Ebert he wrote a kind of a reappraisal at the 30th anniversary of The Graduate, and kind of took the movie down a peg from where he used to think it stood. And he wrote this whole thing about Anne Bancroft and Mrs. Robinson, and how he's kind of rethought her character from from so I guess I'm curious to where you guys land on that rewatching the movie. Do you where your kind of opinion or analysis of Benjamin versus Mrs. Robinson kind of shifts or doesn't? Are you
Well,
with
I mean,
Ebert, I guess, is what I'm saying
yeah,
there.
I mean, I
Or-
think I'm not, frankly. I mean, I'll just
Hmm.
put that out there. I think that's the conventional wisdom, right? That Ebert expressed. And I think a lot of people express that. That when you're young, you sympathize with Benjamin, and when you're old, you sympathize with Mrs. Robinson. Watching it for the first time in 25 years, all I can think of is just, particularly in like maybe the first third of the movie, I feel so bad for Benjamin until he kind of turns and becomes a stalkerish dick.
Yeah.
But like that first third is so deeply uncomfortable for me in a way that I don't remember it being uncomfortable when I
I'm
watched it in my
so with
20s.
you.
And that's
I'm
really
so
weird. Like
with you.
I'm the 49-year-old person who I guess I'm supposed to sympathize more with Miss Robinson. And I do, because the film is sympathetic towards her to an extent. The film is. But God, it hurts. I hurt so bad for Benjamin, particularly in the first half of this movie. And
Mhm.
the people, all I can think of is, this is a boy. I say boy, but he's 21 years old, right? This is a young man with clear anxiety disorders and social disorders who should be as far away from all these people as he can possibly get.
That's why I
So,
say so much of it is in performance, like
oh,
execution,
yeah.
because I think
The
Mrs.
whimpers, the
Robinson is
whimper.
written as a foil, but the way that Anne Bancroft embodies it gives it the sympathy, and of course, the filmmaking too. But Andrew, I am totally with you. I was watching this, jumping out of my skin, watching this young man be sexually coerced. It is actually so radical the way this film is thought of in the culture, the semiotics of it, like the semiotics of the leg shot.
Mhm,
It represents, ooh, an older woman seducing a younger man. That is
mhm,
not what is happening in this film. This Benjamin says no repeatedly, over and over and over again. And she is just a nasty person. She is kind of an evil person. And you do get inside her brain to an extent that you see this deep hurt, deep sadness.
Mhm.
But then Benjamin starts doing the same things to Elaine. And I'm like, I have never actually thought of The Graduate as a film about like a cycle of abuse and
mhm.
how abusers are able to, in some ways, project onto the other person that this is good for them or that this is their idea. And then it just completely destroying their psyche in that way. And to see, it's clear that that's happened to Elaine in to some extent as her daughter. I mean, it has to have, right? But to see the two of them at the end of it, everyone sort of thinks of it as some kind of, on the pulse of youth culture, well, now what? I look at this now and I look at the end and I'm like, those are two completely traumatized bodies. And they're saying now what, but they're like vibrating with anger and hurt, especially because of the thing that they do. And yet it's still really fucking funny. And that doesn't make me queasy in a way I think a lot of other filmmakers would. It's just that the situations, the comic timing in it, and it makes it darkly funnier or much darker than I had ever really viewed it before.
I like that reading. Yeah, it's kind of a, and I'm just imagining Redford in this role, and I on the Criterion release of The Graduate, the director's commentary is Nichols with Steven Soderbergh,
Yeah.
and I would highly recommend people listen to that if you like The Graduate, because they go into a lot of different aspects of the movie. But there's this funny story where Nichols says he asked when he was testing Redford for the part, have you ever struck out with a woman? And Redford did not understand the question. He didn't even really have a conception of what it would be to like, or what it would mean to strike out with a woman.
I love that story. Like
It's a great story.
Robert Redford is so inhumanly handsome that
Yeah,
like the idea of a woman turning him down is it's like a foreign language to him.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, right? He's too pretty for this role. And Dustin Hoffman, let me be clear, Dustin Hoffman is gorgeous in this movie. I'd forgotten how attractive,
He is a good looking guy.
how angelic his face looks, how fit he is. Like I had forgotten that. And I think because our mental image of this is this little nebbishy guy who's sort of whimpering and whining his way, particularly through the first half of the film. But he's a handsome man. But
Yeah.
like Redford is too inhumanly beautiful.
Right.
You can't buy the insecurity and the anxiety the way you can with Hoffman and his performance.
And
we
the
talk about the
comedy of it doesn't work either, because I mean,
No.
Redford was not a comedian like Hoffman was, but this movie's so much funnier with Hoffman.
Can we talk about the whimpering? I had forgotten how good
Yeah.
the whimpering is.
It's crazy.
He is so obviously a kid. Like I say, he keep calling him a kid, but I think what I mean by that is mentally, he's so obviously a child who doesn't want to be here in that
He's
opening scene.
20 at the beginning of the movie. That's a kid. Sorry, 20-year-old fans. You got a lot ahead of you.
But he so obviously doesn't want to be there. He's so obviously miserable, and I had forgotten about that. How both pathetic and funny that is in that opening sequence. It's great.
And it's great because of Dustin Hoffman. Robert Redford has played like malaise before. I guess. Like I say that thinking for sure he has. He's directed a great malaise movie in Ordinary People, but this is like you feel absolutely nothing, and all you want to do is stare at the fish tank. I believe Dustin Hoffman in that, but Dustin Hoffman is also so comedically gifted too. I'm thinking about him and Buck Henry at the hotel lobby, and just the bell.
Yeah,
the thing with the bell when he puts his hand over it and he slaps it and then he puts it back and then he puts it like it's so ingenious because it demonstrates that kind of anxiety and the sweat I mean the Criterion Blu-ray, and I think there's a 4K disc somewhere out there, seeing the sweat on Benjamin's face literally all the time.
Yeah,
I love the way he positions himself when he goes to the zoo with Elaine and her boyfriend. He kind of like wedges himself between them.
He's like, we thought we were by the monkeys.
And
he's like, who are you?
Who is we? What are we going? What are we doing here? It's such a great physical comedic performance.
So let me ask you, like, if I'm doing, seeing this film this way for the first time, I'm wondering, the dynamics between Elaine and Ben are so colored by their relationships and their respective relationships to her mother. What do you think about Ben going up and like just renting a room in fucking Berkeley and stalking her, and the cultural idea of this film as like one of the pinnacle, or one of the peak romantic comedies. Interesting that our culture thinks that. Of course we would, because it's one of the most heartbreaking films about, romance that I've seen.
Right. I think two things can be true. We can recognize that Benjamin's behavior is sort of awful, particularly in that phase where he's like stalking Elaine and sort of clearly pushing that won't take no for an answer element of male entitlement that we now sort of recognize as being awful when we see it expressed in media. But again, because the film is almost entirely from his perspective, I don't know. I guess I don't even really, to say I understand it is maybe the wrong word. The film understands why Elaine's sort of compassion and beauty and acceptance of him from their few limited interactions, becomes like a life preserver for this kid who's completely lost. And all he's doing is fumbling for it, reaching out for it, trying to grab it. That's what his moving to Berkeley is about. He tasted something that wasn't abject misery for a short amount of time, and now he's trying to reach out and grab it again. Doesn't mean he's not wrong to do that. It doesn't mean that he's not objectifying Elaine and treating her without agency and ignoring her when she says, "Please go away." But the film understands why he's doing those things. Why, and like you say, Josh, there's a lot of perceptive psychology in the construction of this thing in the script and in the performances.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, Nichols shoots it. I mean, obviously as subjective as possible. I think he said he wanted to make it as subjective point of view as he could of Braddock, and yeah, I think it is complicated, but I like the life preserver read there, Andrew, because he really is kind of, and I think one of the weaknesses that I've seen in the movie when I've watched it is the relationship between Elaine and Ben isn't really as fleshed out as maybe you'd like when they end up running away together. Obviously, there's a lot of ambivalence in that ending, but it's maybe that's kind of the point. Is like he's just grasping for anything. Like he sees this girl who he had something nice with, and he's like, you know what? I messed this up. I need to grab onto this, even though we don't even know each other that well. Like we've been on a few dates. I slept with her mom all summer or whatever, and yeah, I mean, I think he realizes obviously this thing with Mrs. Robinson isn't sustainable, and that's run its course, and I've messed up. But yeah, I think you can see him as a not as a hero, but you can relate to his state of mind, like you said at the beginning of the movie, with the anxiety of the pressures of adulthood, and but I think you can also see his self-centered childishness. The mistakes he makes, the kind of almost solipsistic like point of view that he has, that I'm just making my choices, and they're wrong, but they might be wrong, they might not, but I'm just doing what I can. I guess I was thinking of the cultural part of the movie. He became kind of a generational icon, this character back then, because the movie was so huge. He didn't, like you said, he goes to Berkeley. Benjamin doesn't really stand for much. He doesn't really there's obviously Vietnam protests, everything going on at this time. I think the guy who rents in the room is like, you're not one of those outside agitators, right? So there's all this stuff going on, but he blocks all of that out. He'd rather sit at the bottom of a pool, than kind of go out and experience any of that. Obviously he's from kind of a posh background, but
always depressed.
What do you guys make of him becoming such an icon despite a rebellious icon despite that?
I mean, it speaks so much to the culture that amidst the civil rights movement and sending everyone over to Vietnam to fight an unwinnable war, that what emerges is, a wasp who's crying, but I think it's in the film itself that Benjamin is so far away from the culture that we can't blame, what ends up happening with the kind of like the Scarface or the taxi driver. We can't help but blame the culture for their misreads of this film, which is something that I discovered really on this last watch. Because culturally, this film is about youthful malaise or the generational gap, but there's a lot more going on here than I think it's even given credit for. So Roger Ebert taking it down a peg is great, because I think it doesn't belong in the conversation of well, let's prop this up as one of the 10 great movies, because I think it does a disservice for AFI to put it on a list like that. It adds a kind of untouchability to it, and I think this film is about fragility. And I think I think the culture's just really done a disservice to this film, because the film is much more tricky than that, and Nichols is much more aware of the culture as a whole. Here is a concentration camp survivor I mean, they fled right before they were about to get marched into camps. And someone who had a really terrible, tough, immigration and through that found this massive career eventually in theater and in comedy and became like the face of waspiness, but the satirist of that. What he and Elaine May were up to was not about like showing a mirror, but a mirror cracked. So
I mean, his first feature film was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? I mean,
right. Yeah. It's hard to argue with that and how aware Virginia Woolf is about traditional family values.
Well, and I think the reading of the film that maybe has me a little bit more sympathetic towards Benjamin and Elaine, both Benjamin and Elaine, than I was, 25 years ago, where I viewed it more both as a historical time capsule and just a kind of interesting character piece with an interesting drama. I feel much more sympathetic towards Benjamin and Elaine now than I did back then. And part of it is that reading that you're talking about, the idea of trauma and disillusionment. I mean, the reason that you could argue that the reason that Benjamin and Elaine both make the decisions they make in the final moments of the film and sort of without thinking about it closely is because they're still children on some level, because of where they come from, because of what they've had to endure with those families and the people who are supposed to be sort of helping them become adults instead, sort of, in Benjamin's case, sort of perverted and twisted him into something else. Or in Elaine's case, they're trying to sort of shuffle her out of childhood directly into the subservient wife mode with this frat boy that she barely knows. So
because that was their culture. Like that's what they did, right?
Right. And you can tell, I think there's something I didn't notice when I originally watched it, and having rewatched the climax of the film again now, is the absolute like vituperative poison in the Robinsons when they're talking about Benjamin. Like even Mr. Robinson, you can kind of understand why he might be pissed at Benjamin, but even she is so gleefully malicious in that final church scene with a couple lines that Anne Bancroft gets. Like I feel no sympathy for anybody else other than Benjamin and Elaine by the end. It's just they're awful people.
You really see the similar. Obviously, they grew up, friends, Benjamin and Elaine, but you see the similarities between the Robinson parents and the Braddock parents, and very interesting. You see the similarity between Mrs. Robinson and Benjamin's mom, how they're styled, how they're dressed.
It's
even
like
a lot of
pitiful
stuff going on there.
Yeah,
which I think is very purposeful. I mean, I think Nichols knows what he's doing there, and he's zeroing in on something about their upbringing and their, what's happening here.
I mean, the flip side of getting older for me is not so much sympathizing more with Robinson, but just realizing that when I was 25 and I saw this film or whatever, I would have been younger than that. I would have been like 20. Of course, at the time, I was like, oh man, Anne Bancroft's an old lady in this movie. Of course, she's only like 36. She's not even that much. Yeah. She's not that much older than Dustin Hoffman. And B, now I'm like,
I kept saying yesterday, I'm like, she was younger than I am.
But of course, the other thing is now I'm thinking, man, Anne Bancroft was a stone cold fox.
She looks great.
Mel Brooks was a lucky man.
And Nichols is even lighting her poorly. He's lighting Hoffman to look like he's of this angelic face, this physique, and then he's lighting Bancroft terribly.
She's got makeup, right?
Yeah, she's aged.
I'm not imagining that.
She is definitely aged in it.
And
I mean, this is like 5 years after she's won an Oscar, and if anyone's a draw in this, it's that Anne Bancroft is in it, and that
she has top billing.
Some kinky shit. Does she really have top billing? I didn't notice that. That's
in the credits at least. Yeah.
Yeah, she does. Yeah,
deservedly so. She kind of had the clout and was respected as an actress, and I think I agree with you, Drew. I think she does give the performance of the film. I mean, it's kind of like to call her a villain is to, rob this character of humanity and, I don't know, make her seem like Darth Vader or something. But she is absolutely a monster. And it, to me, is one of the scariest things is the way that she she does what she does in the first 30 minutes of the film. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's like almost like a horror movie watching her
is.
go through the motions, and you just want to scream at Benjamin and like push him out the door, you
And
know?
say, get out. Right.
Get
Yeah.
out, please.
Yeah. But it's the key thing that Nichols does, and that he does get some comedy from it, that he doesn't really know what to do at all with it, because she is like a mother figure, but she's not. And it's really, it's so fraught with complication that, again, I think Nichols is the one who should be given a lot of the credit for bringing it out for something that I think is in the book. And look, I read the book when I was a kid, so clearly I didn't understand The Graduate, the movie, didn't understand Graduate, the book, but it does read as sort of like, this is the worst thing you could say. It reads like a novelization of the film.
Oh, okay.
Ouch.
meaning that it is a really great adaptation. The Graduate is an adaptation in the most supreme sense, and that making it into a film is giving it even more meaning than what Charles Webb found in his words.
Well, let me ask you, Drew, about that, about the filmmaking, because you brought that up earlier, and about how it was used as an example in terms of its formal qualities, not just in its sort of time capsule or human dramatic elements. That it's an interesting film formally. That's the thing that really struck me this time, because I will freely admit that when I was 20, I wasn't as cinematically literate as I am now, so I never really thought about it as being that kind of film. And then watching it this week, I was like, this is a movie in a way that I don't remember it being. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit more about that, like the parts of that when you do remember those elements as being essential to it, how are those elements important, do you think?
Well, I think at the time in that class back in college, we watched a couple of new Hollywood movies. We watched Bonnie and Clyde, I think within the same week or two. So the first time I had seen Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate, and I think the formal elements of both of those are so important to understand, just the basics of film, but then also what new Hollywood is, how it's disrupting, what it's doing differently than the studio system and all the films that came before. And yeah, I think both of those movies in tandem are so great to study, because if you just want to know, like, how are we telling a story visually through blocking and cinematography and editing, and you can really break it down scene by scene and go that deep, or you can just like this movie does, follow the subjective point of view of this character and see how the director, the editor, cinematographer are all placing you in his perspective, and you can really learn a lot about how film can be constructed that way. And I think that was kind of mind blowing for me back then. And I think the other elements of appreciation for this movie have come in since then, and looking at it from different angles, like we're doing in this conversation, and how complex it really is, even though on the surface maybe you just think it's a romantic comedy of some sort, or a coming of age movie of some sort. But yeah, I think that is kind of what I latched onto immediately, was like how different this movie looked when I saw it at a young age.
For me, I have another key scene, and it's really the first scene of the party at the house, and the very careful blocking. And this is a scope film, it's 235, very widescreen. The whole plastics quote with Hoffman, and I forget who the actor is, but he's just incredible. Every player in this, every
Perfect.
face is so fucking good in this. Yes, perfect. And in the background, there's someone who appears to be very drunk, like futzing around on a pool chair or something, out of focus. And it's just like the utter like chaos, but also the isolation in the frame. And Ben coming later in the scene, coming down the stairs, and it cuts to a handheld camera that is so close to Benjamin's face because of the fucking anxiety happening. I mean, going from very purposeful, like staid and, even Antonioni-esque frames of isolation to popping it off the tripod and putting it in this like chaotic thing was so key for me, that he's so smart, and Robert Surtees, at understanding all of the tools that are available to you and the new languages that are being created and new technologies that are being created and how they can be applied to your narrative. I think it's just so smart. And yes, is it often kind of ostentatious? Yeah, that shot of Anne Bancroft after Benjamin tells Elaine what's happened and they're all rainy and she's in that empty hallway, like,
Hmm.
it's a little on the nose, but it's a gorgeous fucking shot. And it's kind of
And it
also
evokes the
very,
feeling
it
so
gets the
well.
feeling immediately. And I don't think there's like a misplaced move in this. There's just like everything is bringing the kind of emotion out of it with the camera.
And I would say this was also a huge gateway movie for me, going back to watching the European cinema of the '60s, L'Avventura, Antonioni,
Mm.
the French New Wave, Breathless, all of those movies I saw shortly after I saw this one, and it
Mm.
was kind of this is the chain here. This is the chain of influence that I'm seeing that kind of taught me so much about cinema. So that's another reason this is kind of a foundational movie for me, because it introduced me to so many worlds of movies.
I wish I had been when I first saw it. I wish I had it divorced of like AFI Top 100
Mm,
and had found it the way that you found it. I wish I found this movie when I was older. I've seen it a lot, and to the point where it became like, the culture regards it. It's The Graduate. It's one of the great movies instead of for the object that it is. We haven't even
yeah.
talked about Simon and Garfunkel,
Mm.
which is fine if we don't, because I've had The Sound of Silence stuck in my head.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
it's
Hello,
one of my
Darkness.
least favorite of theirs. I am a fan. I just don't like Paul's part. Anyway,
well, I didn't. So again, something that I didn't remember from my first viewing was how deliberately the sound overlays this sort of uh plaintive, dark ballad in that opening stretch against the cacophony of those airport announcements. It's so deliberate, and I guess
Hmm.
I'd forgotten about it completely. But I'm like, I wonder if Paul Simon was pissed about that. that they're the single. It isn't the single they
they can't
wrote
be
for the
too
film.
mad. I think this
Yeah,
film did wonders for them.
yeah. It's not the single they wrote for the film, but it does get used like 3 times, I think, in this film. That Sound of Silence gets
3 or
trotted out.
4, like
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the first time, it's almost like dissonant. You can't even get a good handle on the melody because we have the loading in the white and red zone announcements coming in over the soundtrack. It's so disorienting, and it has to be deliberate, right? The way that Nichols doing that.
Well, it's that the sound of silence is so deafening, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. It's so inextricable from the movie, the soundtrack, and I think, like you're saying, Andrew, like it's so tied in with just the audio track that we're hearing of these different scenes, and yeah, it's hard to imagine this movie with a typical score. And I was watching a featurette about The Graduate that was on the Criterion, and somebody on there, I can't remember who, but they were like, this was the first movie to feature pop songs as a soundtrack for the movie, which I don't even know if that's true. I mean, I did not fact check that, but it probably is one of the more popular first examples, since this movie was so huge and featured Simon Garfunkel throughout. And obviously they scored, scored the movie to the both. They had their pre-existing songs and they scored some of the scenes as well. And it's so inextricable, and I think it could be a little too tied to the '60s at points, but I do think they kind of give you a little bit more depth of feeling with the music than if this had just a typical '60s,
I,
soundtrack to it or score to it.
I think it works, but it's also possible to recognize that the soundtrack is part of the reason that this film has been canonized as sort of one of the essential boomer films, right? An essential part of American culture was how tied it was to Simon and Garfunkel as Essential's late '60s artists, and how dominant this soundtrack. I mean, half the parodies of The Graduate in pop culture also are parodying specifically the use of Simon and Garfunkel on the soundtrack. I can't think of Sound of Silence without thinking of Will Arnett sitting there in Arrested Development saying, "I've made a huge mistake."
Yeah. 100%.
Like,
yeah.
it's parodies and send-ups have permanently ruined it. So
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like this song. Do you guys ever think about this though? Like the kind of cultural ubiquity of something like this, and that its ubiquity is a cast a kind of backwards light on it that is unfair to it. Like I would really love to hear Aretha Franklin's Respect
for the
for
very
the first time and not have it, so ubiquitous, and to understand what it is, because I can't really listen to it now. Like I
Yeah.
can't hear that. That's everything that's associated with it. I can't just hear the notes of the thing.
Right.
I
You could say that about anything, right? Like, what was it like to hear
Pretty
Rite of
much.
Spring for the first time?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think there's some things like that are well represented in culture. I think about like The Shining is really itself in
Yeah.
culture. Yeah. Anyway, that's just a little thought experiment for me.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
Well, there are certain things, that do feel like they are so singular that they kind of rise above. They could be parodied endlessly, but when you sit down to watch them or listen to them, it's like, wow, okay, you can absolutely see why this is so iconic. But yeah, when you're talking about the Simon and Garfunkel soundtrack here, are the songs so great that they rise above that? Probably not. But within the film, if you're just sitting down to watch the movie, I think, it totally works. Even if it's not the Shining level work, which what is, but
Well, then I think we've come to the point, unless anyone else has burning topics about The Graduate. Again, we keep talking about these huge movies. Like, we're not going to get to everything about these things. Andrew, I think I went first last time of my own accord, but I'm going to let you vote first. Do you think that we should keep this film forever?
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna vote for this film. It might be my favorite Mike Nichols film. Looking at his filmography now and looking at the ones that I've seen, he's got some great ones, he's got some less great ones, but this might be his best film. We did an episode about Heartburn. I'd forgotten completely about that.
Oh my God, we did.
Yeah.
And that kind of mid but underappreciated. I think it's underappreciated. I like the Nora Ephron of it all. I don't vote for this one. If you knew,
I'm using my vote.
Okay, good. Wow, we're both at 4 now. If you guys knew how much Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and maybe you can just tell by talking to me, is in my fucking DNA. Like, I'm gonna wait for some other gay to come on here and recommend that, and then
we're gonna be talking about Liz Taylor more. I'm pretty sure.
I really hope so. That's my Nichols, like, because it's required of me. I think this is a great, this is just a fucking great film. Like, and I've had a few moments where you guys have been talking about stuff. I'm like, oh man, like even 5 stars. Like, is this a 6-star movie? Well, not without reservations.
I feel like per director.
No, we don't.
No, okay.
No,
but we have kind of our logic for voting has kind of been informed by, is this the film we want for this director? Like, we did Begonia last week, and we were like, we both like Begonia, but we're like, if we're gonna put Yorgos in there, should it be something else? So that logic does kind of have sort of informed it informally, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but I have something to say that future guest has already told me they've chosen a Paul Thomas Anderson film. We already have a Paul Thomas Anderson in, so that's not going to be a rule that I'm going to stick with.
Yeah.
Because if you choose a PTA, it's probably going in.
But Virginia Woolf could legitimately go in too. I mean, that is an unbelievable movie. I remember seeing that few years ago. It was a COVID watch, deep COVID watch. I
really?
was like, I've never seen this one, and I was like, oh my gosh, what Nichols is doing here is pretty about equal in my mind of what he does in The Graduate. I was so knocked out by it, and the performances are everything in that movie.
I'm a big Postcards from the Edge fan. Like
I
that a
think
lot.
he made a ton of great movies. I think he like even his misfires are interesting. I
We don't
think
talk
that
about Wolf.
well, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, let's
And
not
I
talk
don't,
about Wolf.
I don't think he gets enough credit for his visual style, and I think it kind of cooled as he grew. But Haskell Wexler gets a lot of credit for the look of Virginia Woolf and for quote unquote like directing it on set. But that seems kind of apocryphal. I don't know, because a lot of that, what shows up here is with a completely different cinematographer. Sure, did he learn some things? Absolutely, but he was also a voracious watcher and a very creative person too, as it turns out. So,
Yeah.
all right. All right. So I'm hanging on to a vote. So now we're both at 4. We're like what, 7 weeks away from the end of the year.
Oh, don't say that. Ugh.
So we got to start throwing out some votes because I'm expiring. They don't roll over is
Oh.
something I just made up now.
Like vacation time at a crappy company, it don't
Yeah.
roll over.
Right.
PTO.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, Drew, thanks for coming back. Thanks for bringing The Graduate to us to revisit. I hope our listeners will revisit too. It's out on a great disc or two out there, depending on your format. I'm sure it's streaming too. I don't know. I didn't look it up. It's The fucking Graduate. You've seen it.
I'm thrilled the Do You Like Apples didn't go over 2 that on your guys' permanent cinema. That's fantastic.
Yeah, you can text Billy and tell him that you won.
Yeah, I officially. Yeah.
All right.
I think we talked enough about Signs to still make, like, in a positive way, to still make Billy happy he picked it. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can say that you're the of the duo, you're the one who
Victor.
who talked Josh and Andrew into it, or at least
I
Andrew into it.
mean, Signs and The Graduate. Who could have predicted the way that would go? Drew, will you plug Do You Like Apples one more time? Tell us where we can find everything and find you online.
Yeah, the best place to find us is doyoulikeapples.substack.com, or just go ahead and Google that if you can't remember that. And yeah, we have the Substack newsletter going. We have the podcast going. Yeah, please follow us, subscribe, and chime in on what you think about what we're doing. But thank you guys so much for having me. This was an awesome conversation. I had a great time.
Yeah, thanks for coming back for sure. We will see you very soon, I hope. Every episode we round out with one more thing that's something related or not, something we've been enjoying. Andrew, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about Simon and Garfunkel. Shocker.
Okay.
After watching The Graduate. And of course, like, Sounds of Silence and Miss Robinson have wormed their way into my brain. But it also reminded me about Art Garfunkel and his somewhat brief, limited acting career.
But which surprisingly not as brief as you think.
Yeah, didn't he have a
He's in
show
Nichols' Carnal
too?
Knowledge a few years
Oh,
later.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Which, yeah, we probably should have brought up, but oh well.
Well, I want to talk specifically about Nicholas Roeg's Bad Timing, which is a film that I
Yeah.
love. And I don't think it's talked about enough. I do think it's more on people's radar than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago because of some reappreciations, a new Criterion disc, and some other things.
I got excited and I think I talked over you while you said the title. What is it?
Oh, Bad Timing. So this is a film that stars Art Garfunkel and Teresa Russell in the lead roles. And I don't even know what category to put this movie in. I guess it's kind of a thriller, psychological thriller.
The category is Nicholas Roeg.
Nicholas Roeg being fucked up, making really bizarre choices in terms of editing and scoring.
As he does.
As he is prone to do. So how can I explain this film? So it's one of those great sort of, here's the movie, but then halfway through it's revealed to be a different kind of story than you thought it was going to be. So the movie, and I won't spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but the movie you think it is, for a good portion of itself, is Art Garfunkel plays this like psychoanalyst. He's either a psychoanalyst or like a psychology grad student or something. He's very 1970s, very earnest, very quiet and bookish. And he's enamored with this woman played by Teresa Russell, who is sort of a bad decisions party girl, maybe a little bit of a narcissist, maybe a little bit too wild for her own good. But the film opens with her apparent attempted suicide, and Harvey Keitel, I believe, plays like a cop who's trying to figure out what the heck happened. And so much of the first half of the film is him interrogating Art Garfunkel about like, well, what exactly went down between you two? What do we know about her history and her relationships? What happened here? What insight can you give me as somebody who was sort of had some kind of situationship with her? And him sort of then narrating the film in flashback and explaining what happened, or at least his viewpoint of what happened. I guess I might be spoiling things slightly by saying one of the reasons this film works is because it sort of relies on you not quite ever trusting Art Garfunkel and assuming from the outset that maybe he isn't entirely being truthful and he might have been up to no good.
It's all Paul Simon's point of view, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I love this film because it's marketing at the time, I think, was sort of overblown as it being like, ooh, a daring, depraved, kinky
Sex
film.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't really. I mean, it is kind of, it's an adult film, as in a film for adults about a twisted psychology of relationships and male entitlement and male toxicity. Teresa Russell is absolutely amazing in it. She's gorgeous and
Always great.
just mesmerizing whenever she's on screen. Again, sort of the whole Nicholas Rogue of it all is part of what makes it so exciting. But it's a very unique film. I can't think of any other film that it reminds me of, which is I think a good recommendation for it. It feels like a very unique creature. It doesn't often get talked of as like one of Rogue's great films, but I think it should be higher maybe in his canon, and then it generally is.
Yeah, I think it's probably his last great film, and I know he has some like staunch defenders who would probably think ill of me for that, but I don't know. What are you going to say? The Witches, Eureka? Like, I think this one is. We can agree on that.
It's came out in 1980, I believe, and it has that feeling of a film made at the very end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s. So it feels like very much a film of its moment, but also timeless in a lot of ways that really matter. So I won't spoil any more about the plot. Just go see it.
Might have talked about this in our 1980 episode when we talked about The Shining and the films of, because Catherine hadn't seen it before, and we were talking about like films about abuse. I think this might have come up before. Yeah.
It is so I will give trigger warnings. It is a disturbing film, ultimately about emotional and physical abuse and toxic relationships. But so as long as you're aware of that going into it, I think you'll be prepared for the cool, twisted places it goes.
And then where can people find you?
At thetakeUp.com.
Speaking of cool and twisted.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, it's Noirvember. Did you know that?
Yeah, I know.
It's every November. And I'm not like Katie Carter. Hi, Katie. You're going to start coming up every episode until you come back on. She hated my one more thing about her. Anyway, here she is again. I'm not an expert in this, but I've seen fucking Double Indemnity. I love Out of the Past. I get it. But I decided to do it sort of proper this month and really dig deep. Like, let's see the Ulmers I haven't seen. Let's catch up on all the Claire Trevors I've never seen. What's emerging to me is that Anthony Mann is not only just a great filmmaker of the Western, but should be and is probably regarded as the best noir director. And I want to highlight one very, and there's this whole Paul Schrader argument of, is it a style, is it a genre, blah, 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 blah. But this is like kind of an anti-noir in that it, noir. is not fun to say. In that, the film T-Men is about the Treasury Department and two agents who go undercover. It's 1949, 50. Someone clock me on that. And they go undercover to expose a counterfeit ring, a money counterfeit ring. And it's just a very interestingly constructed film because it starts with an introduction of the actual head of the Treasury Department addressed to camera. And so it has a narrator that is narrating it as if it is documentary, but what's happening on screen is like peak noir style. Eventually, the narrator, who you think is going to be a very irritating piece of this film, as he is like literally telling you what's going on, but always with a kind of verbal noir, hard-boiled style, drops off, and you get a film that is incredibly exciting. It's propaganda at its best. And
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it made with like Treasury Department participation? Is it basically
I mean, it does
propaganda,
open with
recruitment poster?
It does open with a seal, and it does make me think that yes, but it's kind of not a part of the point. The point of the film is less about, the MacGuffin of the money, but more about procedural and how people, in noir double cross. And because you're in on them going undercover in the beginning, there's a level of suspense where there might not be in other noirs that will end with a twist of a double or triple cross, right? You're aware of who's doing what in this film. And so the suspense comes from whether or not they're going to actually win in the end. And I'm not going to say anything else about it, but it is just chock full of Mann's kind of trademark depth of field and his just crazy blocking and mirrors and shadows. And it's just really well done.
Shot by the great John Alton of American
Yeah,
Parents
and
fame. Yeah.
it's such a precursor to every other kind of like exactly what I'm describing, cop goes undercover film, that it's really great to see someone experimenting early with what would eventually become sort of a subgenre.
Well, this is Dennis O'Keefe, right? And then he would have been in Raw Deal as well. Shortly after
Yes,
that, right?
and yeah, there are two stars who are emerging. Dennis O'Keefe, who is just this like sandy block of a man, but he's so good in this. And Claire Trevor. Claire Trevor is not in this, but Claire Trevor, she's just like a horny fucking stone. I think she was nominated for anyway. Raw Deal is another one that I just watched, and I didn't even really know, but another Anthony Mann. So really, I'm recommending. T-Men is on Tubi right now, so that's T-Men Tubi. You can find Raw Deal other places. But,
I have not seen this one. I've seen Raw Deal. I have not seen T-Men, but I don't know what it says about me that I know about the existence of this film because it is heavily influenced, is one of the many films that heavily influenced the infamous season 8 of Archer, the Archer TV series, which was the all noir vintage set in LA season.
That I am completely unaware of. I've watched a few episodes of Archer. It's it's not necessarily my thing, but now I am intrigued.
Oh, you should just watch season 8. It works as a standalone. You don't need to know anything else about the show. It's the one set immediately after World War II in Los Angeles. It's like a fever dream season. That's in every episode is like a homage to another different noir film or hardboiled film. It's great.
Well,
anyway, we're gonna sneak it. I just snuck in another one.
We're always couching recommendations inside of recommendations. But my official one is T-Men. It's on Tubi. I'm on KMOV. I'm on thetakeup.com. That's the take-up.com and at the takeup STL. Next week, we're off. We are off for the St. Louis International Film Festival. and we will be seeing a few things there. Maybe we'll come back and break down the fest for you. Maybe we won't. I don't know. We'll be very busy. And then the next episode in 2 weeks, we're going to have our friend. This is such a good double feature. We just did The Graduate, and our friend Max Habby is bringing on Rushmore.
Ooh.
Oh my
I
God.
love
It's
it.
like a snake eating a smaller snake's tail. There, I said it. All right. But until then, Ethan Tarantella, you know what? Thank you for editing, helping produce the show. Kayla McCullough for social media. Theme music by AMP. And I am not going to sing this time at all.
I appreciate it.
Although I guess I could sing like Iggy Pop's The Passenger, like la 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 la, because that's
No,
Rushmore. I
no.
did it. I ended up speaking.
That is not in Rushmore. I don't think so.
Is it not?
No.
Is it not? I think
No.
you should let. I think you should. I think I.